Ephialtes of Trachis is perhaps the greatest traitor in all of Greek history, his entire legacy overshadowed by a single, treacherous act that would irrevocably alter the course of the Second Persian invasion of Greece, leaving an indelible stain upon his name for all of eternity. Ephialtes of Trachis would betray his homeland during the Persian Wars by revealing a hidden mountain path to the forces of King Xerxes, allowing the Persians to outflank and overwhelm the Spartan-led forces at the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC. These actions would directly contribute to the death of King Leonidas of Sparta and thousands of other Greek warriors in one of history's most legendary last stands, with his betrayal earning him the eternal scorn of the Greek world. However, despite the infamy Ephialtes gained and the promise of Persian rewards and riches, his life would end not in comfort nor as a celebrated ally of the great King Xerxes, but in obscurity, violence, and shame. Although Ephialtes escaped immediate justice for his betrayal, he would eventually meet a brutal end. However, his death would not occur by a Spartan sword or due to a public execution, but in a manner which was most surprising and unexpected. So what were the exact circumstances behind Ephialtes' passing, and what do ancient sources such as Herodotus reveal about the final fate of the man whose name became synonymous with treason? In this video we will examine the obscure, ignoble, and ultimately bloody death of Ephialtes of Trachis, the man who sold out Leonidas and betrayed a nation. But before we begin, don't forget, if you want to find out more about the deaths of some of history's greatest figures, then subscribe to my channel, Historical Exit. There is very little known about Ephialtes' life prior to the events that would occur during the Battle of Thermopylae. Herodotus purports that Ephialtes was born in the Greek region of Malis and was the son of Eurydamas, but little else is known of Ephialtes until he would gain infamy in 480 BC, when he would betray the Greek forces at Thermopylae. During this chaotic battle, the Persian forces were unable to get past the Greek defenders as they defended a narrow pass that prevented the Persians from effectively using their greater manpower and weapons. And during this critical moment, when the Persians seemed like they would be once again be humbled by the Greeks, Ephialtes would betray his countrymen and show the Persian forces a hidden mountain trail known as the Anopeia Path. And this path allowed the Achaemenid Empire's elite troops to bypass the Greek defenders and surround King Leonidas and his men on all sides. This betrayal would lead directly to the collapse of the Spartan-led defense and mark a significant turning point in the campaign. It is believed that Ephialtes initiated this betrayal solely for the promise of a Persian reward, as Xerxes had offered a huge sum of gold to any Greek who could assist the Persian forces to bypass the narrow pass at Thermopylae. Although it remains unclear whether this reward was ever paid out or not to Ephialtes, as we have no confirmed details about the financial state of this traitor after the battle. Nevertheless, once the Greek world became aware of his treachery, Ephialtes was condemned in absentia and a bounty was placed on his head by the Amphictyonic League, which included powerful nations such as Sparta, Athens, Thessaly, and Boeotia. Being the most hated man in Greece forced Ephialtes to flee into exile, and his life from that point forward would be one filled with fear, isolation, and dishonor. No specifics are known about his life while he was in exile, and he is absent from historical sources until his death a number of years later, although the exact year this occurred is unclear. In his works, the Histories, Greek historian Herodotus would state that Ephialtes would be struck down by a man named Assassinated of Trachis, stating the following in his works. Later, Ephialtes was killed for an entirely different reason. He had fled into Thessaly after the betrayal, and a man named Assassinated of Trachis killed him. The Spartans, however, declared that Assassinated had done a noble deed and gave him a reward on the grounds that he had killed Ephialtes, the traitor. So in this way, Ephialtes met his end long after the events at Thermopylae, and not because of them, directly. So in this passage, Herodotus states that Ephialtes was killed in the city of Thessaly many years after the Battle of Thermopylae, and that he was killed by a Greek man named Assassinated of Trachis over a personal dispute rather than to avenge the fallen Greeks Ephialtes had betrayed many years earlier. But it would appear that the Spartans were still ecstatic that the individual they held responsible for the death of their beloved King Leonidas and 300 other Spartans had met a brutal and bloody end, and they would reward Assassinated for the noble deed he had enacted. It would appear that the Spartans and much of the Greek world looked upon the murder of Ephialtes as justice that was long overdue. For centuries, Ephialtes was considered the embodiment of treason in the ancient world, similar to perhaps how much of the Western world views Judas today. But it should not come as a surprise that an individual that was as selfish and greedy as Ephialtes met a brutal and bloody end, being deceptive and untrustworthy till his very last breath. So I really hope you enjoyed this video on one of history's lesser known figures, and if you did find this video to be interesting, please do like and share it with others. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel Historical Exit so you can find out more about the deaths of some of history's greatest figures. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.